Recently, Fox Sports has announced that they're going to have a rotating man or woman in the booth for most NASCAR Cup Series races this year. I think they've learned from the fact that the two-man booth didn't work in the past, and from this point onwards, I think having a little bit of fresh air in the booth would be a good thing. You see this in pretty much every sport for the most part. You don't have a team that is just going to have the same announcers every single week unless it's a local one. Well, NASCAR doesn't have that, so instead we're doing this. And so far, we've had 3 drivers who have either come back or will come back to be in the booth so far this season. But I wanted to go through and look at a few different former drivers, personalities, whoever, who should be in the booth at some point for one reason or another. So today, let's look at 8 different people who should be in NASCAR and Fox's Cup booth. Starting off, we're going to go with my one throwback pick, and I think this guy should be in there for complete nostalgia reasons. Daryl Waltr. Daryl Waltr fell off a lot towards the end of his broadcasting career, but the thing is that in moderation, DW would be great to bring back in the throwback race. NBC did this with Ken Squire and Ned Jarrett, and while they did a good job, you know that they probably couldn't carry a full race broadcast the way they used to, and that's the same thing with DW. So, my idea with this is bring DW in the booth for the second stage of the Darlington Throwback race on Mother's Day. With that, bring Larry Mack in the booth and have Larry, Mike, and Daryl be reunited for one last time, or maybe as a reoccurring thing over the years until one of them hangs it up. Like Ken Squire, Dale Jarrett, and Ned Jarrett, they'll all have great chemistry, they've all worked together, and the big reason here, again, has to be for nostalgia. Those guys have great chemistry, but they are, for the most part, past their prime, and it's just a giant nostalgia trip for the fans. I mean, that's what the entire race has been centered around when it comes to the throwback race, so who cares? Let it happen. Next up is a pick that I don't think many are usually thinking when it comes to bringing into the booth, and that's Elliot Sadler. Elliot Sadler is a very charismatic driver. When you look back into his career at interviews that he is actually a really great interview, a great TV personality, and the thing is, he's a very popular driver, so fans would be very happy to listen to somebody like him. He's unconventional in how he speaks in the booth compared to what other drivers have been, but I think he would offer a lot of great insight, and that's something that's going to be a huge theme with drivers when I talk about them in this list. Insight. We need that. Too much in the Fox booth, there's been too many games, and Mike Joy has had to basically carry the entire broadcast on his back. But somebody like Elliot Sadler could be a good fit right next to Bowyer, and probably would lean more towards Bowyerisms than Mike Joyisms, but at the same time would be really good. Now, drivers shouldn't be the only ones that Fox thinks of bringing on as a guest analyst in the booth. In my opinion, Chad Kanaas would be the perfect person to bring in the booth. You see, he is very calm and has a personality, at least over the air, that really is reminiscent of what Matt Kenseth was this past week. He would be a great perspective as well when it comes to what the crew chief is thinking during a race. You've seen the Fox booth with 2 drivers, and the thing that they're really missing is that crew chief perspective. When Larry Mack left the booth, there was a noticeable void in knowledge there, and that's something that Chad Kanaas would be able to fill very, very well. And I mean, come on, he is arguably one of the top 5, if not the best crew chiefs in NASCAR history. So having someone with his pedigree in the booth to bounce off of Larry Mack when he jumps in from time to time would be an amazing way to really get an insight into the mind of an old school and new school crew chief in NASCAR. Plus, even though I'm not crazy about my hometown, seeing another Rockford native up in the booth on TV would be really, really cool to see. And hey, if you can't get the crew chief, get the driver. Jimmy Johnson, come on. Why wouldn't you want to try and get a 7-time championship winning driver in the booth if you are going to have a booth guest as a driver? Now, I know that he is in IndyCar right now, so he's not going to be available every week, but IndyCar does not race every week the way that NASCAR does, and there's different places where they can sort of meet up in scheduling. He is an amazing professional, and he's been a professional through winning and losing in his career, so you know that he would bring a good amount of maturity to the booth. He is recently, very recently, an elite driver. Literally, you can look back 6 or 7 years ago and still see Jimmie Johnson winning championships and lots of races. While he had a hard fall off in his career, he knows what it takes to win, and he knows when drivers will be doing something well or be making a mistake. He's great behind a mic, and I think that he would really even out the Bowyerisms the way that Matt Kenseth did this past week and Tony Stewart has. So I think Jimmie Johnson would be somebody who would be really great to bring in if you could maybe fly him down from Indianapolis and have him do the Coke 600. He'd be doing his own version of the double. Now, another person I would want to bring in would be Greg Biffle. Again, most of these guys are going to have some very level-headed personalities, gonna kind of seem almost introverted. But the thing that sets Greg Biffle apart from all these drivers, in my opinion, is the fact that Greg Biffle has raced the next-gen car, and after Las Vegas, will have raced it multiple times. Having somebody in there who has actually had experience in these cars in race conditions, even with the slow car, is something that's going to be very valuable. When Daryl Waltr went to the Fox booth, he had been in the car the year before. When Bowyer went, he had been. Same with Jeff Gordon. You need that fresh driver perspective because over time, these former drivers are going to get rusty with their analysis. Now, the youngest of the people that I would want to see in the booth is actually Trevor Bain. Now, Trevor Bain can kind of seem awkward in interviews, but he has a youthful exuberance that has not left him in the past 11 years since winning his Daytona 500. Yes, he is in his early 30s, but that is young for people that are analyzing NASCAR in the booth for their standards. You could also maybe have him race at the track that he's announcing in the Xfinity race one day, and then be able to give that analysis for what the track was like the next for the Cup Series. That way, again, you have analysis that Mike Joy and Clint Bowyer just could not give. And I think he would definitely fit the super speedways. Yes, I know he won the Daytona 500, but he was always up front, even if he didn't finish there in his career at Daytona and Talladega. So again, he could give insight to what the drivers are feeling in the draft, and it would warrant a lot of respect from everybody listening. Now, let's go from the youngest to the oldest. Mark Martin has to be on this list. Yes, I know that he was in the booth for half a stage at Fontana, but I don't really count that. He was there as more of a guest. The thing that I thought was great was that Mark Martin seemed to fit in well once he got comfortable in the booth with the guys, even when it was a very short amount of time. So it gives me hope that Mark Martin could probably jump into the Fox booth sometime later this season even. He's beloved by every generation of NASCAR fan, so he'd be somebody who was respected the way that someone like, say, Dale Jarrett was. Somebody who you just cannot dislike. Plus, Mark Martin, let's be real, is probably one of the few former drivers who could jump into a car right now and race in the top 10. He also would fit really well with Mike Joy in particular. I think the two of them would play off each other amazingly. Plus, he's a realist. The dude heavily endorsed more of the racing that we're seeing on track right now and was very anti-550 package. The guy has nothing to lose. He has no reason to kiss NASCAR's ass with anything that happens. So if he says he likes what's going on or the direction that NASCAR's going in, it holds more weight than pretty much anybody on TV right now. And if he says something is wrong, the fans can rally behind him and the points that he makes. Plus, it's Mark Martin. I mean, come on. Mark Martin always makes stuff better. Now, I'd say my last pick is the one that everyone will approve of for obvious reasons. It's Carl Edwards. Carl Edwards, in my opinion, would be the absolute best fit for any booth in NASCAR. And it's because all through his career, he proved that he could easily have a great 20, 30-year career behind the mic on TV. Whenever it was a DNF or maybe an Xfinity race that he was at the track for, he would always want to jump into the booth, jump on TV, and he always managed to kind of just make the cameras all point to him. He was the center of the show without trying to be the center of the show. He's a great professional, he is very good at speaking, and on top of all that, he gave great analysis with no prior experience in the booth. Also, for Fox's standards, this would be a huge splash move for them. Fox has been very stale, though I do applaud them for trying to do something new with a rotating person in the booth. And seeing Carl Edwards on screen, someone who really fell off the face of the public eye of the earth since 2016, would be a huge splash move. Having an entire broadcast where people can come back to a driver they loved during pretty much NASCAR's heyday would be a great move. It'd be a perfect middle ground as well. He has that professionalism that Mike Joy has, but at the same time, he has that kind of excitement and a bit more of that enthusiasm that Clint Bowyer has without going over the top. In my opinion, Carl Edwards, out of any of the former drivers who have retired recently, would be the best person to have in the booth. I think he'd give Dale Jr. a run for his money as most popular commentator based on objective talent. But that's just my take, and I'm a Dale Jr. fan saying this. Now, those are just my picks. I want to hear yours. So let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content like this. And to all my channel members, thank you so much for your great support. So until next time, have a good one.